So this video is going to show you how to conduct ANOVA tests in SPSS. So we commonly refer to ANOVAs as one-way ANOVAs, and one-way ANOVAs test the difference in the average scores of one variable amongst multiple groups. Now this distinctly differs from what we do in a t-test. So a t-test will test the difference in average scores on one variable amongst only two groups. So if your independent variable here has more than two categories, if it has multiple categories, then we're going to move from a t-test to an ANOVA. Now this might not be that accessible, so if we actually look to test this with a real-life hypothesis, which in this instance is going to come from the American National Election Study dataset. A hypothesis that we would use to test with an ANOVA would be there is a difference amongst people who are A, always interested in politics, B, interested in politics most of the time, C, interested in politics half the time, D, interested in politics some of the time, E, never interested in politics, and whether or not they vote. So if you note here in this hypothesis, which is structured a little strangely, we have 5 different categories here, and we're hypothesizing a difference between these 5 different categories. So is there a difference amongst interest in terms of whether or not these people vote, and vote is, in this case, the dependent variable. If you note, like a t-test, this is a non-directional hypothesis. All we're saying is that there's a difference between these two variables here. We're not hypothesizing magnitude or direction of this relationship. To take this a little bit step further before we go testing, what we're going to do is we're going to pull the independent and dependent variable out of this hypothesis. So the independent variable is represented by the multiple categories here, which if you look at the ANES data set, it is interest underscore attention. And the dependent variable, which is the outcome, is in this data set vote. If we switch over to the SPSS data set, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to look at the variables that we're working with. So if we go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies, and we pull out the 2 variables, so interest attention, which is at the top, and vote, which I know is in the middle of my data. All I want to do is find the minimum and the maximum and just take a quick look at the frequency tables. So click OK. So we have the descriptive statistics here. Interest attention is measured from 1 to 5, and vote is measured from 1 to 2. So interest attention, always, most of the time, about half the time, some of the time, never, in terms of how often does the respondent pay attention to politics. And vote, yes, voted for president, no, didn't vote for president. All right, now we're ready to use the ANOVA. So if we go to Analyze, Compare Means, One-Way ANOVA, we can use this dialog box to test the relationship between these categories on this dependent variable. So the dependent variable, again, is vote. So we find vote in my list. We click that over to the dependent list. So we're done there. Now we just have to work on the independent variable, which is the factor box. So I'm going to scroll all the way back to the top, go to interest attention, put that into my factor, and that's it. You're done. You click OK. SPSS will give you this in terms of its output, and for this class we're primarily interested in 2 values here. We're interested in these F statistics, which is 13.736 in this example, and we're interested in the significance value here, which is 0.000.